let's talk about clarity. Let's get clear about clarity. Let's talk about what clarity actually means. So let's become clear about clarity. Yeah, it sounds a little bit funny when I say it like this, but clarity can be seen from so many points of view. So, in the next 3 days, we are going to talk about communication, about agreements, about short term and long term goals in your future, and everything that comes with it. So, clarity challenge. Why the clarity challenge? Because when we talk about what we want to do and achieve in the future, or maybe just tomorrow or even today, it's so important that we know what we actually want to do. So when we take a look back at the end of our lives, and I mean, this could be tomorrow, we never know what's going to happen, then you want to think about that one question. Did I do everything I wanted to do? And of course, with wanting to do everything also comes with, was I capable? Was I able to do everything I wanted to do? Well, for those who know a little bit about my story, you know that I've been struggling with walking. Hence why you see the pin up with the crutches. Unfortunately, I have to tell you, I am walking with crutches again since about a week. I'm not too thrilled about it, but then again, it makes walking a lot easier. And before I started walking with crutches again, I ran into limits, lots of limitations. I couldn't do anymore what I love to do best. And that was a thing that didn't sit well with me. I was like, hey, I'm about freedom, I'm about traveling, I'm about going to concerts, and I'm not doing it anymore because it was simply too painful. And I was like, that cannot be right. So, just going back really quickly, for those who don't know, in 2014, in summertime, I tripped on a brick. I sprained my ankle. Well, that's what the people thought. I twisted my ankle. So, correction. I tore a ligament on the inside of my ankle, which is very unusual. A bone got loose, and I can't say it started swerving through my feet, but it did move like an inch and a half. And attached to it was a tendon, which went from underneath my foot up to my calf, and it hurt immensely. It took me 4 years before I finally had my second, yes, I said second surgery. So the first one took me about 9 months. It took me 3 months before I even got some tools like crutches to be able to walk. Then again, another 6 months before I finally got the first surgery. I knew it wasn't enough, but they didn't want to do anything more. So they stitched up the ligament, and then I was on a journey to find the right surgeon who would actually fix that bone. It took me another 3 years before I found her. I'm eternally grateful to her. And those who saw me like a couple of weeks ago said, oh my God, you are walking without crutches and you are walking so immensely good. They were totally surprised. And I said, yeah, I can stand on 2 feet again if it's going okay. Well, it's not so much, but that's not what they saw. They saw me walking smoothly, which is true when it comes to small distances. I could walk smoothly. So, yes, that was a huge gain. And every day I'm still grateful that I can sit again without having pain in my ankle, and that I'm actually capable of walking without needing my crutches straight away. So fast forwarding, I I learned to walk again, to stand on 2 feet again, and I can tell you the amount of freedom it gave me. Did it limit me during that time? No. I traveled through the US for 6 weeks with 2 backpacks and 2 crutches on my own. And that same year, I also traveled through Europe. I've done it all. And I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And I did. So even the years after, I still needed the crutches and I just kept traveling. So fast forwarding, I was like, oh my God, this is going well. I got training from physical therapy. I go there twice a week. I train. We do stability exercises. And lately, we've been doing a lot of exercises for my shoulders. And not needing crutches anymore at some point actually allowed me to fix on this part again. So they usually have to realign my wrist. So when you see me, I'll do this. I won't shake your hand because then I have to go to the therapist straight away to realign the bones in here. But yeah, that's basically what happened. So at some point when I was at the physical therapist, I started walking on the treadmill. And then I noticed that I couldn't crouch down anymore. So my mom, who was back then still alive, she had a cat from the neighbors in her garden who would lie down in the sun. Sweetest thing, black and white cat, and she was called Pearl. Pearl had arthritis. So I couldn't touch her everywhere because then it would really hurt. But it was so nice to be there. But I noticed I couldn't crouch down anymore. So I said so to my therapist. I said, this is not going the way it should. Fast forwarding, I started doing boxing. And up till this day, I still love it. I still want to do it again. Going to happen someday again. And she let me do something which meant doing this and then doing that. And as you can tell, my hands are doing things they're not supposed to do. They call it double jointed. And normally, back in the days when I was still doing step lessons and all, and I used braces. I had these big braces around my knee. And so I could twist my ankle. I could be like, and then I could go on again, which was kind of cool. Going forward with the boxing, 1 minute of going like this, and it was over and done with. I had a torn ACL, so that is the ligament on the front side, and I had a torn meniscus. Well, goodbye. And there we went again. During that time, I was still walking with crutches, by the way, which I actually can see on the pinup which someone made for me. I used zebra crutches, and I had so many positive reactions to that one. People saying, oh, I feel like I'm on safari. You know, I had a lot of fun, and I still use pinned crutches up till this day, because if you're going to do it anyway, let's have fun with it. I went to a different surgeon, and then another one. And then he told me, no surgery, we're not going to do it. It's going to be at the expense of your cartilage. Well, that's not good either. Arthritis in both knees, as it turns out. So I was like, okay. And then he said, but you know what? We can create braces for you. We can have them custom made. So first I got one for my left knee with stars and stripes. And then I got one for my right knee. And that actually has the old pinup and this pinup on there, which, by the way, are a tribute to someone who used to be a client of mine until she decided enough was enough. And although she was a very positive influence for most of us, she didn't believe so she stepped out. Fast forwarding again, it was cool to not have to use those crutches anymore. So when I was in Chicago in September, I only used my knee braces, and that was freedom, you know, being able to hold stuff and walk around. During that time, I did notice though that my tendon plate on the left side of my upper leg was hurting quite a lot. So let me explain this to you. when I was in Chicago and I didn't have enough rest, it really hurt. My knees hurt, everything hurt. Joe was there, Cheeky Joe, and she can tell you that both of us were struggling a little bit when it came to walking, but we did it. And I was proud of myself. I was like, yes, I'm getting there. So cool. So I did buy a camping chair so I could watch what was going on during the recordings of Chicago PD and also Chicago Fire. And I just made sure that I could carry it around in or on my backpack back then. Fast forwarding again, December, I decided to go to England and spend Christmas with Cheeky Joe and her daughter. Call me anything. That's a little joke between her and me. Her mom, Joe, has all these names for her. So I said, what am I supposed to call her? And she said, call me anything. So that stuck. So I always call her, call me anything. During that time, I noticed that something didn't go quite right. And I am still not sure if it was being on the buses or carrying stuff around. All I know is I got a tear in the muscles of my upper leg. So didn't go right. And in the following months, it didn't improve. And then I think it was about March, I was carrying something in the mall just from the shop to my car. And then I felt another tear and I was like, ooh, this is not good. And it felt like my leg was attached to my body with threads. So I couldn't just lift my leg anymore. I really had to make a conscious effort. Fortunately for me, and for all of us, we have a lot of muscles in our legs. So my physical therapist taught me how to walk again. So I felt like a show horse, in a parade, having to literally lift my legs. It didn't improve much. So at some point I said to the physical therapist, I might need to use crutches again, because I noticed I stopped doing things. Like I said, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to a concert. I don't want to sit in a wheelchair in the back. And, been there, done that, got the shirt, don't want to do it. I'm not ready to go there. So I was like, okay, what now? And then the unthinkable actually happened. So about a week and a half ago, I was walking downtown. It was bad weather that day. And, well, what's new? It's Holland, after all. And I forgot one of my tumblers in one of the stores. So I had bought a few paper bags, nothing fancy, and a few notebooks. And I was like, oh, I can't handle the weight. And I'd noticed that before. Every time I started doing grocery shopping, at first it was like, oh my God, I can do grocery shopping again. I've got my hands, And then at some point after December, I started noticing that whenever I would, and especially after March, that if I would carry something, I would lift something, that leg would really be hurting. And it was like, it's there's pain and there's pain. And there's pain like this is uncomfortable, and then there's pain and it's a warning sign. So the latter, that's something I have to be aware of, and I am very aware of that one. Oh, and then there is just another one, which is when a tendon is out of place, and it's like putting a screwdriver in there and then twisting it. So fortunately, my physical therapist, specifically one, has taught me over a decade ago how to handle that one. And I'll be forever grateful for him doing so. And that's, by the way, the reason why I go there twice a week. So they put the tendons back in place. And I have to say, I'm so grateful, because when it comes to my shoulders, they actually have helped me to make it move around in such a way that the bicep tendon, so that's the one attached to your upper arm, when you actually flex your arm, is no longer in the way of moving my shoulder heads around. So awesome. And that's the reason they didn't want me back on crutches. So, hey, Anna, so good to see you. So, fast forwarding again, I noticed that things didn't go right. So that Monday, I felt when I got back that my pelvis was on fire. And I instantly started using crutches again. So the next day, I entered the building of the physical therapist, and it was like some current was going through my leg. It had one advantage. I was no longer in pain, which I had been for a year. You know, whenever I would sleep, I would lie down on my side and it would hurt. So, no, not good at all. Anyway, I did talk to some doctors recently. They told me what to look for. And I have to say, two things came out of it. First of all, I slept better. Second of all, I got back to crutches, which actually gave me more freedom and it gave me the chance to heal those tears in my upper leg. So that's a good thing. Now, back to clarity. What does this do and how does this relate to clarity? Well, for me, it meant like, what does this mean when I want to travel? This year, especially September, I'm planning on going to LA. Brandon Burchard has this awesome mastermind group. So on the 1st of each month, except for July, he has this show and a dinner, and well, you can either come over or you can watch it online. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So in September, I also want to go to Chicago and see Chicago Fire and Chicago PD in action again. I loved being there last year. I want to go there again. And in September, it's still nice weather. It's after the holidays, which means that people are going back to school, kids, and prices will go down again. So that's a very good reason. Also, there is another training, a coaching training, and well, we want to keep up to par. So all reasons to go there. But I was like, am I able to do so? Because I noticed that the walking was going downhill rapidly. Well, when it comes to clarity, I wanted to know what is going on. What can I expect? And in March, I went to one of the experts again, and they said, okay, we need to put a halt to what's happening. So actually what happened the Monday, not this week, but last week, was the hernia acted up again because I also got a hernia. Didn't tell you about it, but yeah, that's what happened too. And then it was like my shock absorbers were gone. And all I want to do is thank you so much is getting back to walking again. Well, the good news is I can cycle again, get on my bicycle. I went to the beach last Saturday. The bad news was I knew I'd done so, especially yesterday. I was like, ooh, my back was so stiff. But yes, I'm doing it. I've also started playing drums again. I did notice today that it was a little bit harder because, well, my back has to compensate all the time for what's going on. So that's the whole thing. By the way, I'm getting all these feelings back in my leg again, and I don't mean emotions, but yeah, it's hurting a little bit more again. But that's okay. I can deal with that. So going back to clarity, short-term, long-term clarity about my goals. So today I had a talk with someone. It was actually kind of cool because it was a result of a coaching call we had earlier the day before, and we were talking about Chicago. So I know a lot of people love to go to Chicago because I'm part of a group we love to watch Chicago PD. That's the way it is. And fortunately for us, they're out there in the streets of Chicago and they do record out there. And I have to say, when I was there, I've been to multiple places in the US. I've been to Florida, love Florida, got a lot of friends over there, especially musicians. And I've been to California. So one is wet heat, the other one is dry heat. Dry heat's a little bit better because then I don't have to worry about the mosquitoes and whatever kind of bugs are out there. And also Arizona, for instance. Must have been more places where I went to, but those are the main three I went to. But Chicago, oh my God, people are so friendly. There are all walks of life talking to one another, and it doesn't matter what color skin you've got, what your background is, which country your predecessors originated from. If you're tall or if you're short, everyone just walks or talks to one another. And when I was on the L train, the elevated train, so that's they have their train system is actually in the air instead of underground. People would talk to me because they would see my brace, and of course that's a way to get to talk because people are curious. What are you wearing this for? So I've heard all these things from: is it a fashion statement? Is it because you are someone who is into sports? And then, of course, there were those who knew it was for medical purposes. And then they want to know, where did you get it? And how can I get it? And just to show you how kind and friendly the people are, at some point I took some time out to talk to someone about it. And then he dropped by where we were actually sitting to watch what was going on with Chicago PD. And there was a store across the side from where we were sitting. And then he came back, and I think he had his granddaughter with him, and they brought us ice cream just to say thank you. I have to say, amazing. I love it. Totally adore those people out there. So, getting back to the whole thing, when it comes to the future, when I had that talk last night and today, one of the things that I want to do when I look at the long-term future are actually two things. One is I want to set up parks all over the world, see them like resorts where people go to, where there are musicians. I want people, when it comes to inclusion, who normally, so late 20s, early 30s, who have trouble getting adjusted to adult life and working because they have trouble communicating, hence clarity. We are going to talk about that part too. To be able to work there, I want to create videos and pictures and create an entire song about the life of the clients who come over to get some coaching and focus on, this is what I want to do, this is what I need to change in life. And then they can see what life was like and what's going to be like, and that's going to be translated into a song. So that's my big goal. Of course, it needs to be eco-friendly, so with tiny houses and supporting the local musicians. So hence why I was thinking about getting the first one in Florida. And getting tiny houses has one advantage, because whenever there are tornadoes over there, it can be moved, which is, safety measures. But the other thing, oh, my light just went down. So I was like, oh, what's happening? Is I want to take people on a trip. So I actually purchased a website called Coach on the Coach, because basically it's about being a coach on a tour bus. And yesterday when I got to talk, it was about me coaching people to come through to Chicago and walk through Chicago. So my idea was, when I said Coach on the Coach, initially was about, okay, I'm going to coach people on a trip. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have people come over to Europe from the US. And it was an idea that instantly came to fruition when I was at an event from Brandon Burchard, so 2018 or 19, I don't know. And we had to come up with what we wanted to do. And I said, well, I want to take people on a trip. And I actually wanted to take people from Europe to Chicago, or not Chicago, to the US. But since I was in the US, I was like, oh, I'm going to do it the other way around. So I know a lot of people are not comfortable going to countries they don't know. Well, that's good, Anna. watch for what comes. And I said, okay, so I'm going to pick you up from all the different airports in Europe, and then let's go during Christmas time, because then there's so much to do. There are all those Christmas markets and lights and everything, and every country has something specific and special. So I was like, okay, let the people come over. Of course, I cannot do it on my own. I need someone else to coach with me. I do actually have some people in mind who own tour buses and can probably help me out. Now, those are for metalheads, I will say so. But oh, here, can't wait to book my flight. Well, that's cool. So that was one thing. But now recently, someone said, I want to come to Chicago with you. And here's the thing, Cheeky Joe, and she's talked about this many times, because we also talked about our trip when we were in Chicago, and also when we returned. So Joe, she suffers from anxiety. So she has panic attacks, nightmares. It's all related to traumas, which she has talked about. So if you want to know more about it, then just check my YouTube channel, Lady Lexi Speaks Up. Well, if you're watching this, you're probably watching it either on Facebook or on YouTube. So just scroll down and you'll see somewhere Cheeky Joe, and then you'll know some more about it. Well, the cool thing was, she didn't have any or hardly any panic attacks when she was there. She did have some, specifically in the beginning. And the cool thing is that while we were there, I could see her change. So at first she was anxious being in the room. When I got to the supermarket, it was, oh my God, I thought I heard shooting in the background. Are you okay? And then at some point during midnight, she actually walked to the gas station, the nearby gas station, or I don't know, maybe she wanted to go to McDonald's. I think that was the case. And she did it on her own, which was a good thing to do. And when I got to talk with someone else about this, she said, yeah, I'm dealing with anxiety too. And I would love to go with you. And that reminded me of one of the things I said I want to do. I want to take people on a trip. And why not take people on a trip to Chicago? I mean, Joe runs the Jason Begay UK fan page. So he's one of the lead actors from Chicago PD. And well, she knows a lot of people, and a lot of people are watching what she actually does. So it does make sense to say, okay, well, let's start going to Chicago. So I do have to work out some details, like it's easier, especially when people come from all over the world, that they book their own flights. And there are only 2 airports, so that's easy enough to pick up the people. And it would be cool to do a tour, to buildings like the Sears Tower, for instance. What's so nice about that one is there's this glass box all the way up, and then you can have a beautiful view of Chicago. The things about the L trains, locations where Chicago PD is actually recording, the Riverwalk, so many things to go to, so many things to see. I was there for a month with Joe, and oh my God, we could have stayed there a lot longer. And yeah, for those who are from out of country, I do like the shopping too. I'll say I do. So there's so much to see, so much to do. And I'm like, yeah, that could be cool. So when it comes to clarity long term, I forgot about this. But I shouldn't have, probably. And when I talked about it, it instantly came back. So for me, clarity is related in this context to both health. What can I do? So for instance, I don't know if I can still carry around that camping chair. Probably when it's attached to my backpack, I can, because then the weight is evenly distributed. And I do hope that when I walk with crutches in the next few weeks, months, I don't know, that the tears will heal up and they won't get back again. And also, I'm still doing other stuff. I play drums not just because I like it, but also because it's good for my health. Um, and there are many more things I can do. So every day it's like, okay, I'm going to get out there either on my bike or walk. Oh, anything I can do to improve my health. So long term, I want to remain healthy and I want to be able to travel any way I can. And I will say that even when things do get worse, I will still be traveling. So that's when I noticed that I stopped doing things that was a sign on the wall, that was a red flag, like, okay, this is not good. So the other goal has to do with coaching people, basically. So I'm a bit of everything. I'm a licensed therapist. I am a coach. I am a trainer. I've done so many things. And I am about speaking up. So, in case you've missed it, the channel is called Lady Lexi Speaks Up, which is about speak up, speak out, share your story. Because I wouldn't be able to stand on 2 feet, and I wouldn't have been able to travel for 6 weeks through the US with 2 backpacks and 2 crutches if, yes, that's a big if I hadn't been able to ask for help. Well, what I noticed during that time is that people loved my story. And oh my God, I had business cards made and I handed them out. And it was just so much fun because people actually found it really inspirational. And one of the things that I got to realize is I am a storyteller. I'm absolutely a storyteller. Well, I want to inspire people. That's one thing I know. I want them to learn how to speak up and speak out, and also regain their freedom or gain more freedom by doing so. And well, I think that going to Chicago would be a very good first step. Of course, I need to take care of disclaimers because there are always things that you need to worry about when it comes to liability. But when it comes to insurance, I do believe I know what needs to be done. So I can tell people, take care of this, that, and the other. And, when it comes to that, it would be so cool to take people on the sightseeing tour through Chicago. There's so much architecture and it would be amazing. Would be totally amazing. So getting back to clarity, today's topic, the first day, is about short-term goals and long-term goals. Now I'm going to include something else, and that's everyday action, day-to-day action. I could have chosen not to go live today. I had announced I would do it. I would have done it actually a couple of hours earlier, but in all fairness, I fell asleep. So I went live on Instagram. I said, well, in a couple of hours, I'll be going live on YouTube and on Facebook. And I couldn't. I was too tired. I already noticed so when I was playing drums earlier today, because my back is still going, it wants to lock because it wants to protect me. But of course, that has its consequences. Fortunately, it doesn't. So I can still reach my hands, the floor with my hands. So that's a good thing. But yes, it does take a lot of energy. So I said, from last year up until September, I actually went live every Wednesday. I also went live on Mondays usually. And then when we went to Chicago, I just stopped different time zone. I was with Joe. We shared a room. Both of us were tired. So it just, yeah, we can say it had become a habit, and then at the same time it just stopped. And I needed some support from other people to get going again. So whenever it's Wednesday, I tend to go live again, and I just checked. I don't even do it weekly, head desk, but it is my plan to go back to doing it weekly. So I had told you I'm going to go live. For those who know me, they know that uh, after Wednesday, they can check it on YouTube and they will see it. So usually what I do is I do change it a little bit, and then so I take it down and then I upload it again, and I have a little description next to it. And I was like, okay, I need to do this. So clarity, this was about clarity in my mind. I have decided to go live every Wednesday. I need to keep on doing it again. So it's a little challenging to get back into the habit. I have a lot of struggles when it came to how and when do I go live and how does this affect my sleeping schedule. Because usually when I've gone live, I'm so hyped, stoked, energized again that I can't sleep anymore. And for me, it's the middle of the night. So anyway, I'm here because what I decide right now has consequences for the future. And one of the things I love to do are challenges. And well, then of course I need to be out there because otherwise you can watch my challenge. So today, first day from the challenge. And again, this is about short-term and long-term goals. Like I said, the actions that we take right now are of the essence and they do influence our future. So when we talk about day-to-day life, I am in luck because I don't work for a boss anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. Been there, done that, got the shirt, and no. So there were places I really loved to work, and then it would change management. They tried to control me. And so apparently there's this thing called neurotypical and neurodivergent. So neurotypical people, they don't mind what's going on at work or at school, and they just roll through the system. Neurodivergent people like me, they have some more trouble when it comes to that. Well, that's all I want to say about that right now. Day 3, when we talk about communications and all that stuff, I think that's going to be day 3. Maybe it's tomorrow. I don't know yet. We'll get into that a little bit more. And I now know that things which are common for others are not specifically common for me. But that makes me such a great coach because I do understand what it's like to express yourself clearly. And then we get back to clarity again. Because what's normal and understandable for one isn't always normal and understandable for other people. And of course, um, we can talk about people talking in the same language and not understanding one another because they assume certain things. We talk about assumptions, but we can also talk about, but what if we are talking in a language which is not our native language? Well, that's what we are going to discuss too. Anyway, getting back to all of this, what you decide to do during the day has an effect on the future. So last Sunday was Mother's Day. And one of the things I said was this challenge is dedicated to the moms out there. Why the moms? Because a lot of moms, they take either full-time care of the children or part-time, and then after work they get back, come home, they take care of the cooking and the cleaning. Usually the other one, the better half, goes out to work out, and there's still this role division. And caring is something that's in the genes of the women. We had to make sure that the kids were safe when the men were out there on the battlefield. So something is instinctual. And Well, it's not. I mean, women can work part time, but men working part time over here when they have the day off in the week, they call it a daddy day. Have you ever heard of mama days? I don't know. You know, so I know because I've seen it around me. I'm not a mom. Kids didn't want to come, so makes it easy for me to travel. That's the positive upside. And I'm a proud auntie of lots of other kids, whether they are really related by blood or not. And yeah, I also have friends who are single moms out there. So I've seen it. I've seen it happening. And either they only talk um, kids' language or they talk adult language at work, but they seem to forget about their identity until the kids become teenagers. They start talking about their dreams. And so that's why I dedicated it to the moms out there. That doesn't mean that the same doesn't apply to the dads out there, because I've talked to a number of them, and what do? Do they join them for dinner, especially when they're business owners? It's kind of hard to decide what to do and what not to do. And again, it's when the dreams of the children come into play, that's when they realize, oh yeah, I've given up part of my life for my family, which they happily did, but now what? And that's the whole thing. So what I want you to do, because with a challenge comes homework. A challenge is to get you moving, to get you to grow, to get you to think about certain things. So I want you to think about daily life, about short-term goals and long-term goals. How do the things in your daily life help you succeed with your short-term goals, but specifically with the long-term goals? So when you look back on your life, say it would be over tomorrow or in the next hour, would you be satisfied with what you have done? Well, if not, then the question, of course, is going to be, what are you going to change? And by being aware of what you do, so creating clarity for yourself and for others too. And yeah, it does mean speaking up, speaking out, because that's the only way you get across what it is you want and why you want it and need it. Is the only way to be certain about what it is you want. So in my life, and specifically also in my career, I had to change a lot of things. I told you about my journey when it came to walking, and I will add riding my bike and standing on 2 feet. I had to change what I did nonstop. So part of it was because of mental things, like I said, neurodivergent, people who want to control me and tell me what to do. That's not working for me too well. And the cool thing was that every time I had to deal with either suppliers or customers, who were the old ones out? Who did they choose? Me. And who did I love? Me. And what did I love? Them. So, but yeah, when you look at what needs to be done and everything that's going on in a certain department, the old ones out doesn't really work. If you want to standardize certain things, then no, that's not going to work. And that's why we got into a disagreement at some point. But yeah, I have to say that usually I did love my work, but it also caused some burnouts, which why I had to learn to speak up and speak out about certain things. And also to understand what people wanted, because I unfortunately also had to learn that some people cannot be trusted, and some people talk behind you, behind your back. And yeah, we need to be careful about those people too. So that doesn't mean I don't trust people, but it does mean I also have something in the back of my mind like, okay, let's just figure out what someone really wants. And when it comes to communication, what we are going to talk about, I've learned that a lot of people say one thing and they mean another, which is also the result of cultural differences and upbringing. So some people don't have a choice other than say, yeah, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, but that doesn't mean they want to live like that. And I'll say I feel very fortunate that I'm in a position that I can actually say no and mean no. So thank you for that freedom. So homework. Think about what it is you want to do. Think about how this aligns with what you do daily and how this aligns with what you do in the future. And one of those things is think about your why, think about your purpose. So we'll probably get into the why a little bit more tomorrow. But for instance, I want to leave a legacy. The legacy I want to leave is that people know how to speak up and speak out, and they feel comfortable doing so. So by taking people on a trip or building those parks out there, but also by coaching people one-on-one, I know that if I teach one, then that's going to have an effect on their spouse, on their kids. When they are employers, it will have an effect on their employees. So it's going to cause a ripple effect. And yes, I did write a book about mindsets. So if you want to know about mindsets and why you do certain things and don't do certain things, then please go to Amazon, check it out. Lady Lexi, Uncover Your Mindsets. But when it comes to the whole speaking up and speaking out, if we could be a little more open and honest and understanding of one another, this world will be a much better world to live in. And of course, we can't control everything, but being capable of doing so already makes a big difference. And just to finish this live, I'm going to give you one more example. Today, I talked to someone, and he is a business owner, and he is dealing with a number of relationships. So he got a divorce, had a girlfriend, didn't work out, and now he is in another one. And he always says, is it me? What's going on? Am I doing something wrong? And then we get back to the whole communication thing again. So one of the things I've said in time and time and time again is you need to learn to communicate better. So don't assume that what you think is the norm for the other people too. Specifically when you're dealing with people from different countries and different areas. So there's a big difference between being raised in a small village or in a big city. Totally different ball game, different attitudes, but also different view on life. So people in big cities usually are more like, okay, I want to see more of the world, whereas people in small villages may not have that opportunity. So what do they see? And of course, there are also a lot of people who want to go on a trip and see more. So when we talked about this, again, the question came, is it me or is it someone else? And again, when we are talking about different cultures, and specifically if you compare, for instance, what we do here in the Netherlands, and we were to compare it to a country like Spain, or we are going to compare it to a country like the US, we all have different routines. So one of the things I really missed over here, was after 9, kitchen closes everywhere, and at 10, you can't go anywhere anymore. And when I was in the US, 24/7 places were open. Of course, during COVID, that all changed, and I can still see that a lot of restaurants are closed, so they're still dealing with the aftermath. But for instance, when I went to Spain, they close during the afternoon, and then during the evening they open up again, and there are a lot of places you can eat, and they actually have an economy going on at nighttime. So pretty cool. And so when you are dating other people on the other side of the world, they will have their own routines and norms. So what's the norm for one may not be the norm for another one. But when you talk about it and you explain, like, I can handle this, or this is important to me, especially when you are dealing with working hours. So what's Joe saying? They have siesta in Spain because of the heat. Yes, that's totally true. And being raised with a mom who came from Indonesia, I knew about tropic schedules, as they call it. So you start early in the morning and then you get off early in the afternoon. And the funny thing is that actually started happening in Holland too. Why? Because of all the traffic going on. So nothing to do with the heat, but with the traffic over there. And going back to, I got a little caught off guard seeing Joe off there all of a sudden. I understand that the episode, which was airing, is over and done with from the Chicago PD. Anyway, getting back to choices and communication, I said you need to express what's the norm for you, because you are Dutch and you are in a different country, so they have different schedules, they have different routines, and you need to talk about this. So he thought he was going to break up, but they didn't. She was thinking she was going to break up, but instead they actually reached a compromise, which is way better. So they are going to stay together, as in they keep their own places, but they are going to stay in one place more, which is a cool thing. So that way you can get to see one another despite having different schedules, working schedules, and different times when you want to have dinner. So then the other thing was, when it came to talking and communicating, he said, why do people always expect from me that I'll say oblige them. So he's kind of spontaneous guy, wants to please other people. I think there are a lot of people pleasers among us. Also, the people who are watching, I know there are a lot of people pleasers when it comes to them. And the thing is, we usually say yes too quickly, and we do not know what we said yes to until we've said it, and then we think, oh, that was not the smartest decision. Well, that's something I want to talk about more on the third day, when it comes to communication and also to agreements. But spontaneity is a good thing. Speaking up is what's needed next, because sometimes you say things and then you realize this is not going to work. We need to talk again about what we just decided. So I said, okay, you can borrow my car, you can work in my building, you can use, I don't know, whatever it is. In my case, it was a massage table. But what are the consequences? I just had my first official team member, which I think is kind of cool. And when he sent me the invoice for what he's going to do, he's going to be working on my website. I can set up my own website. I actually have done so, but some people can do it way better. He can do it way better than I do. And he has, when it comes to marketing, I know the rules and guidelines, but between knowing the rules and guidelines and being able to apply them, knowing all the plugins and other stuff that's out there to make the website run smoothly, well, that's a whole different ballgame. And sometimes when you say, I want to see the long term what's going on, and to choose long term what I'm going to do, you need to take a step back from the other stuff. But when I looked at the invoice, I looked at what he had described, and I was like, ooh, I'm not sure if that's what I'm going to have to focus on. But I know the guy, I've known him for a while now, and I know we're going to make it work. Just like Joe is there, and I know we are going to go to Chicago together. I probably assume Anna is going to come with us. And So Joe, what you don't know is I talked about how we went to Chicago and how you changed during that trip when it came to anxiety. That the first time around you were like, oh my God, are you all right? When I went to the supermarket. And then in the end, during midnight, you actually went there on your own on the street and you did it. And I didn't share about us being in the glass box, but it's one of those pictures that we have out there on booklets and all that stuff. I'm not sure if I've got one over here, but that moment that we were in Sears Tower together, and she said, I'm not going to stand in that glass box. So it has a glass floor and it's literally surrounded by glass. So I reached out my arm, sort of like it's the sport of staircase. Yeah, it was very high up. So I think we went up 100 floors in under a minute. They actually explained it. Um, but by extending you my arm, it made all the difference. And you came in to that glass cube or whatever you want to call it. And we have pictures to prove it. And that was so immensely cool. And I think that was such a big win. So when I talked to other people about it, they said, oh, I would like to come too if you can help me with my anxiety. So yeah, I want to organize a trip for people to go to Chicago with us and deal with the anxiety. So yeah, I know you were surprised you did. I wasn't because I've dealt with people who are dealing with anxiety and it's about the safety. So to be fair, when I was growing up, my mom a lot of times said, be careful, don't do this, don't do that. So I am not much of a climber. I cannot climb trees. I have no clue how to do it. But I do know about the fear of heights. And what I noticed is that when I can hold on to something, it doesn't matter for me how steep it is and how far I'm above the ground. What I need is certainty. And that's what I offered you, Joe. I gave you certainty. So it would be amazing if I can actually make the dream of taking people on the trip come true. And it would be so awesome if actually the first thing I wanted to do, which was taking people on a trip to the US, is actually going to come true. So yes, I did change it to get people to come over from the US to Europe. But oh yeah, I would love that idea of taking people on a 10-day trip or maybe 14 days, 10-day probably, to Chicago, and then just show them around and make them feel more at ease with what's going on. Anyway, back to homework. Think about what it is you want to do, what you want to achieve, short term, long term, what your goals and dreams are, and if what you are doing in daily life is actually helping you achieve it, or if you should change a thing or two. Well, if you love this live, then be there again. I'll be going live on Instagram and here. So if you have no chance of watching it live, then you can always watch it back on Facebook and also on YouTube. But I might take it down and put it back up again. But for this week, it will be there. So pay attention to it. And if you want a handout, a PDF for free, which goes a little deeper into the whole clarity thing, getting into the things that I talked about, then hit me up somewhere and say, PDF, please. Then I know that this is about the clarity challenge and that you want something so we can, you have some more tools to work with and to think about. Anyway, I'll see you again tomorrow. And again, watch out on Instagram and here on YouTube and Facebook, because then you can follow the challenge. And if you want to work with me or come to Chicago with me and Joe, then hit me up and we can talk about it. You want to see more from the Clarity Challenge? Then go click over there.
and you will be taken there